Importing audio is one of the fundamental aspects of all digital audio workstations. But before we start importing audio into Pro Tools, let's discuss some fundamental basics. Pro Tools only works with raw PCM data. PCM stands for Pulse Code Modulated Data. It can import compressed variants like MP3, MPEG-4, AAC, and so forth, but it has to convert it into raw PCM. Now, Pro Tools only converts or imports audio at its session's sample rate and bit depth. So if I created a session at 16-bit and I try to import a 24-bit file, we're going to have some issues. Well, same goes with sample rate. So make sure that you are importing audio that is compatible with the session and that is not having to be converted. Otherwise, you can lose a lot of resolution or quality in the copying process. So let's talk about the three different methods of importing audio. If you go underneath the File menu, you can go into Import, and you can use Command-Shift-I to pull up this dialog box. Now, you can search for your files. Notice that Pro Tools does not work with stereo files directly. It has to break them apart. You'll notice the .L and the .R. This is a unique aspect of the program, mainly because you can do completely separate EQing, compression, mixing parameters on the left and the right channel. Most DAWs don't allow that. So if we simply click on this file, we can play it. We can choose later to play it further down. So it tells us the start, end, and length. It tells us its type, length, size, its bit depth, and sample rate. Notice that I can add the file to the current session. Now, adding only references the file from its current location. So this isn't really a great idea because you're not copying it and making it self-contained within the entire session folder. So I always recommend to copy files. That way, if you take that session folder to another location, another studio, it's always there. So I'll just show you what happens when I do add. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this, and I'm going to do copy. And all we have to do is just simply hit done. And it automatically is choosing the destination folder of my audio files folder. So I've created a session called Import Audio, and it's already putting it in the correct location. You should not have to really change or look for a different location. 99% of the time, you're simply just going to say open. And it copies the data. In this case, it's only one file. The other one is just referencing. Now, you have three different areas that you can bring your files in. You can bring them into your tracks list. You can bring them into your playlist or your regions list. Now, if I bring it in as a new track, I have the ability to choose whether I want it to be at the song start, selection spot, or the session start. Now, session start literally just brings it into the very beginning of the session. If I do the same process again, and I choose song start, notice that it starts right at bar 1. We will talk about song start further on in the course. For right now, you can see that session start and song start can be two different locations. I'm going to do a Command-Shift-I again. Let's pull this in. I'm going to do a copy as well. Notice that I can also put it in at where my cursor is at. Now let's do it in spot mode. So when I do it in spot mode, it asks me what location do I want to put it at. So let's say I want to put it at 1 minute. So if I zoom out, you can see that my synth has been put at 1 minute in time. So switch this to minutes just to see that. So you can see the start position is at 1 minute. Let's put my cursor at bars and beats. And I'll put this at bar 10. I do a Command-Shift-I. I do synth, copy, done. Copy it over again. I'm going to put it at selection. You can see it puts it right at bar 10, beat 1, wherever my cursor is at. This is great when you're trying to do a mix down from your session and you want to bring the audio right back where you did your mix from. So we will talk about that in much further detail later on in the course. We'll do a Command-Shift-I one more time. We'll do the synth, copy. And this time I'm going to put it in the regions list. When it goes into the regions list, it only shows up in the regions list only. Now there's a reason why I've done this synth multiple times here, because I wanted you to see how Pro Tools handles files that are being copied that are identical. So if you look here, you can see that there's a .1, .2, .3, .4. If we click on this little arrow, you see the .L and the .R. This gives you the indication that it is a separate mono left and a mono right file, just acting like a stereo file inside Pro Tools. So that pretty much covers the file menu. Let's talk about the workspace browser. The workspace browser is underneath the Windows menu, and it's Option, colon, or semicolon. This allows you to search for files across all drives and to immediately drag it into those 3 different locations. Again, tracks list, playlist, and regions list. What's really nice about this window is that I can click on the search and I can choose what kind of file that I'm looking for. Notice there's a lot of choices here. For now, let's just look for an audio file. And I can choose which drive or volume that I want to search for. I'm going to search on my audio drive right now, and we're just going to type in synth. So I'll hit return, and it lets me look for multiple files across the entire volume. This is very unique because I can find files much quicker this way. Notice that it's not just audio files. It could be MIDI data, session files, and so forth. Even session templates. It gets pretty unique. A lot of creative ways of working with this particular window. Now, before I start playing these files, I want to talk about some unique aspects of this window. You'll notice down here at the bottom, you have this little primary and secondary pane that can be shown. If you want to add certain elements to this first pane, you can grab this waveform column, for example, and drag it over here and store it within this particular pane. This is our primary pane. So let's say I want to hide this pane now. I no longer need those elements. This just gives you unique aspects of adding things or taking things away from this pane that you want to see for that particular file for choosing. Now the waveform column is very unique because this allows us to search and play the file very easily. We can click anywhere within this file without having to fast forward or rewind. You can just simply click. Now I can also choose the volume of the file that's being played back right here. Now if I want to play the file, most of the time you can just use the space bar to stop or play. Now if you click on this menu, you can choose whether you want the space bar to toggle, or you can have auto preview. Auto preview allows you to simply click on the file and it automatically plays it no matter what. So you just have some choices. You can also choose to have loop preview. Loop preview is great for working with drum loops or individual loop files that you want to bring into Pro Tools, and they can be auditioned in time with your actual session, just like Logic if you're familiar with that feature. Now let's actually start bringing these files in. I'm going to go ahead and hide these tracks right now. Option click, and then bring my workspace browser open. Option semicolon. You can see that I can take this and drag it into my tracks list. It automatically creates a track for me. I can also take this and drag it into a new blank area and it creates a new track for me, as well as dragging it into my regions list and making a new region for me. So those are 3 different areas, but what I want to point out is that when you're in Pro Tools, you can see that working in the grid and taking things from your workspace allows you to pull things right in on your grid. So you can see it snapping around specific points in time. If I wanted to work in spot mode, for example, you can see that dragging things out will ask you what you want to spot it at. So in this case, we'll put it in bars and beats and say I want it at 10 bars. So there's a lot of different things that can be done by dragging things right out of your workspace, right into your playlist or this main area, depending on what modes you're working with. So very, very useful here. Now the third way of importing audio is probably the simplest, but there is some basic fundamental aspects that are very important for this method of importing audio. We do this third method by simply going into our Finder, or on a Windows machine, the Explorer, and you can simply just highlight your region or your audio file, where you can just simply highlight your audio file. So I'll do a shift click, and I can drag it into my tracks list, my playlist, or into my regions list. Now this works very much like the Workspace browser, and this sometimes is probably the easiest way to bring audio in, whether it's MP3, MPEG-4, or on a Windows machine, it could be Windows Media Audio, and so forth. But there's a lot of conversion, there's a lot of strange things can happen here because you may not know exactly what the file is. It doesn't tell you it's a 24-bit. It doesn't tell you it's a 48 kilohertz sample rate. So these are some scary things you have to watch out for. It's great, it's simple, but you can get into a lot more degradation of your audio when it has to be converted. So before we start talking about bringing audio in from your Finder Explorer, we need to talk about preferences. In Pro Tools, preferences are what guide and control all the different background aspects of the application. So these are global commands. They are always set, and you leave them 90% of the time, and then if you need to adjust them, you can come back in here. So if you go into the Processing tab, you'll see a feature here. It's called Automatically Copy Files on Import. This is a feature you want on all the time in order for audio to be dragged in to your audio files folder when you drag it from the Workspace browser or from your Finder or the Explorer on a Windows machine. So these are very, very important features that you want to watch out for. So again, the three methods of importing audio is Command-Shift-I, which is the file menu, Option-, which is the Workspace browser, and the third is the Finder or the Explorer on a Windows machine.